Dear children, today let's learn the lesson The Enemy by Pearl S. Buck. Let's learn about the author, Pearl Simon Stricker Buck, an American writer and a novelist. As a daughter of missionaries, Buck spent most of her life before 1934 in China. Her novel, The Good Earth, was a best selling fiction book in the United States in 1931 and 1932 and won the Pulitzer Prize in 1932. In 1938, she was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature for her rich and truly epic descriptions of peasant life of China and for her biographical masterpieces. She was, in fact, the first American woman to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. Let's learn the theme of the lesson The Enemy. The story deals with the conflict between a man's duty towards his country and towards his conscience. It raises questions about ethics of a human being at the time of war. And the story condemns racial discrimination and hails the superiority of humanity above any other thing. The background of the lesson is of the World War II that you see on screen. Pictures of Japanese soldiers getting ready and marching over to give their fight against the Americans. The characters in the story are Dr. Sadao Hoki, a Japanese surgeon and a scientist; Hannah, wife of Dr. Sadao, patriotic and a humanitarian; Tom, the American prisoner of war; the general, Japanese army general, old and ailing. He was also Dr. Sadao's patient. Yumi is Hannah's maid and caretaker of Sadao's and Hannah's children. Finally, the gardener. He was an old man. He worked in the house of Dr. Sadao since his childhood. The summary of the lesson. The story, as said, is set in the times of World War II. Dr. Sadao, a Japanese doctor, found an American prisoner of war at his threshold, who is bleeding profusely and is almost dying. He is in a dilemma that being a doctor, should he save the wounded man, or being a Japanese, should he hand him over to the authorities? Dr. Sadao and his wife Hannah also thought of throwing the unconscious man into the sea, but could not do so. They brought him home. Dr. Sadao operated upon him to the dissatisfaction of the maid, the gardener, and the cook, who voiced their protest and finally left Dr. Sadao's home. Dr. Sadao was summoned by the general due to his deteriorating health. He confesses the presence of the American in his house. The general promises to send his private assassins to quietly kill the American. The doctor does not tell his wife about this plan and keeps on waiting for the assassins for 3 nights, but they do not turn up. Meanwhile, the American recovers fully, and Dr. Sadao decides to send him to an unguarded island in the sea. He gives him a boat, lots of food and water, and a flashlight to signal him twice if he runs out of food. He instructs him to stay on the island and wait for the Korean boat. Dr. Sadao is again called by the general and is finally operated. He informs the general about the escape of the American. When he does not see any flash of light, he realizes that the American has escaped safely. The message is Dr. Sadao gives great importance to his professional ethics over his patriotism. He uses his medical expertise to save the life of a wounded soldier, irrespective of his nationality. It is his humanitarian nature which made him rise above the narrow prejudices. Let's learn the attitude of the general. The general is too self absorbed that he cannot think of anything else. He didn't send the assassins to Dr. Sadao's house as promised because he was so engrossed in issues relating to his own health. He saved Dr. Sadao only for himself because he trusted Dr. Sadao's surgical skills and didn't want anyone else to treat him. Dr. Sadao's reflection. He wondered as to why he had saved the American in the first instance. He had hatred for the Americans, their enemy, but humanity overpowered his feelings. To understand the character sketch of Dr. Sadao, he is known to be a surgeon and a scientist, very intelligent and hardworking, at the same time sensitive and helpful. Hannah, she's a devoted wife of Dr. Sadao. She maintained her dignity. She was, of course, sentimental and pragmatic. To understand about the general, he suffered an ailment. He appreciated Dr. Sadao's efficiency, but he was self centered and he overlooked the national interest for personal gains. Conclusion. Love and compassion can make us better human beings as opposed to prejudices and biases. Rationality and human sympathy should reign our senses. Thank you.